much for joining me, David. I'm super excited to have you on the show today. Very excited about the innovation that you and your team are on the journey of it and building it, creating essentially a whole nother industry, which is always pretty interesting. But let's talk about sort of the journey it took to sort of, get there and maybe the aha moment around starting Fortuna and the mission and what it's all about.
My journey to this company really started, much more on the social side than the entrepreneurship side. I studied, languages and politics back in college, really trying to understand people and systems, on their own terms. And I moved to Washington, D.C. after college to actually work on foreign policy. I learned a lot there, sort of like in the belly of the beast. But it turns out that U.S. politics has a very well-deserved reputation for being a total logjam. And after a few years there, I was getting pretty impatient, just not really seeing the impact of all this work I was doing, what sort of impact it was really having on the real world in everyday life. So I quit my job. I moved to India to basically do the complete opposite. I started helping businesses and NGOs with monitoring and evaluation. Basically, how do they track data? How do they make data informed decisions? I loved it there. I ultimately realized that database architecture is probably not my true calling either.
Sure.
But what I did really like was working for a startup with other startups, where like decisions have these really immediate effects for communities and for the world. The story of Fortuna really starts with, going back to grad school and finding human-centered design, which was this perfect combination of understanding people and problems really, really deeply, and then immediately working with those people to solve, those problems together. And it was at the Stanford Design School where I found this problem and the people and also the amazing founding team that turned into Fortuna Cools. It started as a class project working with an NGO called RARE and a fishing community in the Philippines, and sort of this community in the Philippines and this NGO really gave us a challenge, to work on together, and it was how to reduce waste, how to improve packaging, and ultimately, most importantly, how to increase the income of small-scale fishermen there in the Philippines. And the aha moment, as you asked, was kind of realizing that they were catching these potentially super high-value fish. When we went and lived in the Philippines, they were catching these yellowfin tuna, which I was used to seeing in grocery stores for like $30 a pound or something. But they were just getting, $1 a kilogram or so. And so I was, we were trying to figure out where was that immense value being lost in the supply chain. And it really came down to packaging and to, using basically little or no insulated packaging for a potentially high value fish and losing all of the value in the supply chain after they had caught it. And so that was really kind of the moment that we knew we really had to focus on making, better packaging and looking around for solutions, how to do that.
When you were looking around for that, where did you guys start? Did you start at coconuts, or was it, you looked around at what was already out there? And talk a little bit about maybe what traditional insulation and sort of packaging is, and maybe why it's not, the most sustainable, and maybe why it's not the best. And then obviously what you found that maybe is a better alternative.
Yeah, believe it or not, our first instinct was not to start iterating with coconuts. That was definitely not the most obvious path, and it was not the one that we started going down at first. In fact, we actually started still within sort of the universe of plastics, just because plastics just completely dominate the packaging world today. And, they are just completely ubiquitous, whether you're in a fishing village in the Philippines or whether you're, in a grocery store in California. Plastics really dominate. We were not thrilled with plastics. First and foremost, actually, because of the utility. And, plastics gained a lot of popularity because of their usefulness. They're impervious to water, they're pretty lightweight, but insulated packaging around the world is really dominated by expanded polystyrene foam, which is, marketed under the brand Styrofoam. And Styrofoam is super cheap. It was the main thing we saw being used in the Philippines. But of course, it's cheap because it is, very fragile. And so people were just going through Styrofoam boxes like you wouldn't believe. I mean, just, it would last a couple of trips and then it would be garbage. And sometimes it wouldn't even last that first trip. It was so fragile. So, people were wrapping duct tape around these styrofoam boxes. They were building plywood crates to put their styrofoam boxes inside of, doing all these crazy workarounds because the styrofoam was really not working for them. And so we saw that we were living in these pretty remote villages in the Philippines. And we were just seeing all these amazing sort of MacGyvered solutions. But what we discovered pretty quickly was that, styrofoam was just not the right solution here, and maybe we could find a better one. Yeah, so we sort of started working on coconuts really because we were looking around for a material that was locally very abundant that we could
Right.
start
Yeah.
experimenting with immediately, but importantly was also not going to be super expensive because
Hmm.
of course the other nice thing about styrofoam is that it's quite cheap, and so we couldn't just swap in a super expensive
Right.
replacement and just expect people to start spending way more on their packaging. And so this kind of class of material, agricultural waste, really checked these two boxes. It was super abundant and it was super cheap. It was a waste stream of this coconut industry, and nobody was really doing anything with the husks. And so it seemed like a really interesting material to explore. And then it was up to us to kind of figure out, the exact recipe for how to turn a coconut husk into useful insulation, which was not something that people were super familiar with before we
That's
started
not
working
that's
on
not
it.
a YouTube tutorial on that one, huh?
I wish.
So the coconut husk is what, sort of the inner shell of the coconut?
Yeah, exactly. You can kind of imagine that sort of hairy, spindly part.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
just outside of the hard shell, and it's a pretty thick layer.
Oh, okay.
For
Yeah,
every
that's right. Yeah.
for every like 1 kilogram of coconut, you can imagine a coconut is about 1 kilo. Up to like half of that weight is actually this kind of fibrous material. Its use in nature is actually to protect the coconut water and the coconut meat inside. And that was
Hmm.
one of our original inspirations. We were thinking, well, nature has already designed this amazing packaging. When you chop into a coconut, which we were doing
Hmm.
quite
Right.
frequently, living on the beach in the Philippines, which was not such a hardship, I should say. We would always find this cool, fresh coconut water inside, and so that was one of our initial inspirations. Was
Ah,
this must be a pretty interesting material to
yeah.
be keeping this coconut package so well, and let's kind of explore it further.
And so that's a really cool way to look at it, because it had to have some form of insulation, right, for the coconut water to be so fresh for seemingly a long period of time. Coconut water stays fresh if it's not cut open, right? I guess I have no idea the science behind it, but I'm sure it's a decent amount of a time where it could sit within the shell and not be cut open, and then finally cut open and still fresh. So at that point, are you like, how far are you into sort of the project of trying to look at alternatives for styrofoam? Was it a little later on where you were like, hold on, we kind of have everything we need right here?
It was later on, and yeah, so we had already been working on this project. It started, as a class project in grad school, and then we graduated. We were still working on this as a project. We figured we better start calling it a business,
Nice. Yeah.
and so yeah, we were still working on it then, and we worked actually for a year. Just on the problem and iterating different designs without really focusing too much on the materials. And
Mm,
we got to a place where we had some really interesting designs validated, and we were still using different plastic versions. And so we thought, we understand the user, the customer really well. We have this sort of scaffolding for what a solution might look like. And now what we really need to work on is the materials. So we didn't really get too deep into the materials side of things until basically the second year of our business, when we had really already honed in on the solution we were trying to make. And then we had a list of kind of requirements for what that material should be. And then we sort of dove, very, very deep into the world of coconuts and into agricultural waste and fiber and manufacturing. But we didn't really start there kind of in the lab or with the
hmm.
manufacturer. We started with the customers and with the users. And I think that process has served us super well. You can get really deep into the material science and the engineering of the packaging, but our business is always rooted, and our decisions can always come back to what do people actually want out of
Hmm.
this product. And so I think that was a great place for us to start, when we're making a new product, was to really start with the problem. In year of the business. was where the coconuts sort of came to the fore.
What did you discover when sort of talking to potential customers or just people in the industry? What were sort of the big ping points and kind of what did you discover out of that research that maybe opened your eyes a little bit? You know, anytime you go deep into any subject matter, you know, usually you surprise yourself about what you find.
Oh my gosh, yeah, no, it was a super interesting journey. It's still a learning journey that we're on, and the best way to do it was just to we were working in these different supply chains or insulated supply chains, cold chains, and we followed fish and later perishable vegetables and dairy. We would just follow these products from the moment they were taken out of the ocean or out of the harvested on the farm, and we would just follow that specific fish, for example, out on the boat, into the beach. We would follow it, first, the buyer, and then the aggregator, and then the transporter, all the way up to the marketplace where the consumers were buying that same fish. It was a super eye-opening experience, and one thing we learned pretty quickly was that the cheap styrofoam box was really adding up to a big expense for distributors, but it was also just a really annoying product for distributors to use. And I think that was sort of an early insight that maybe we could fix something, because aside from not wanting to spend a bunch of money on their packaging, if you can make an annoying product less annoying for users, you're generally onto something here. And so I think it's not too difficult to close your eyes and just imagine picking up a styrofoam box.
Yeah,
It's squeaky, there's little
totally.
beads falling off, you have to be careful, otherwise you're just going to like crush it. And yeah, it gets really dirty, with fish. I won't get into into all the nitty gritty, but fish can be kind of gross and can
Yep.
smell kind of
Yep.
off. And so this whole journey was just people basically plugging their nose and plugging their ears and just like trying to deal with these styrofoam boxes, and really it was not a good experience for them. So that was sort of the initial insight. It wasn't just a high expense and a big source of economic loss, but it was just the users, the everyday users of this
Hmm.
product really didn't like it. And so we figured we could design something better for them. Yeah. And the second, just to call out one other quick insight that we had there,
Sure.
um, styrofoam boxes work pretty well going in one direction, but in the other direction, when you're sending an empty styrofoam box back from the market to the beach, you have this big empty box, and that's a super inefficient, shipping process.
Hmm.
People basically call it shipping air, and people waste a lot of money just shipping air around the world. And so that really gave us the second kind of target to aim for, which was to make a collapsible insulated packaging box, so that when it was empty for that reverse trip, you could fold it up and save a lot of space and save a lot of transport costs on the back end.
That's super interesting.
Hey there. My name is Asa Goldstein, and I'm the founder of Brandshine Creative Services, a boutique branding agency that helps ingenious heroes save the world, one idea at a time. We work exclusively with impact startups like yours, empowering your success by building your unforgettable brand, your eye-catching visual identity, and your state-of-the-art website. To learn more about how we can help your startup compete against the mainstream brands that stand in your way, and to book your free brand audit, visit brandshinecreative.com.
So what makes coconut, I guess the fiber like really good? Like does it insulate better than styrofoam, or is it just overall a much more productive product for the use case?
Yeah, so it does actually, if you process it correctly, it does insulate better than expanded polystyrene foam. And the insulation, to do a very quick little thermodynamics lesson here. Insulation
Sweet.
basically works by, yeah, I know that's what you wanted to hear, and I'm sure what your listeners want to hear. Insulation basically works by blocking airflow and by trapping air in a barrier, so that the warm air on the outside can't infiltrate the cold air on the inside. And so closed cell foam basically does that by trapping lots of tiny air bubbles inside of these sort of plastic blocks. Actually, if you look at coconut fibers under a microscope, you'll see that they're also made up of these tiny air pockets inside of each fiber. And so it's it's these air pockets inside of the fiber as well as the trapped air between the fibers that really block this heat transfer and make for really good insulation. We did look at a number of different agricultural fibers, and we found that coconut fiber was one of the best candidates for having this kind of innate good insulation capacity. And then it was really up to us to figure out how to manufacture it efficiently to take advantage of that kind of natural characteristic. But it's also that same natural characteristic that is keeping that coconut water cool when you break into it, even after it's been baking in the sun on the coconut tree for days or for months.
And so the first business model or the business case initially is to sell to these fishing markets and through the companies that are shipping it. Is that the sort of right now the sort of business model is for them? And then we'll get into the consumer side, which I'm pretty excited about. But talk about the business model now, where the sort of revenue comes from at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. So we sell just basically to distributors and to cooperatives, to farming and fishing cooperatives.
Mm-hmm.
So groups that sort of aggregate at a pretty local level perishable food like fresh fish.
Mm-hmm.
So the business model is basically to swap in for their existing insulated packaging, their styrofoam boxes, and we can basically swap in one for one with what they're using right now. And the boxes, these insulated boxes, Fortuna coolers, basically just last a lot longer, perform a little bit better, and fold up for return trips. And we are selling to these kind of food aggregators and suppliers that have dozens, hundreds, up to thousands of these styrofoam coolers in their inventory and are constantly replacing them kind of every week. And so that's kind of our initial market there in Southeast Asia.
And the pitch to them is simply that the cost doesn't change, but it lasts much longer, and then you can eventually save money via the sort of back and forth of the lifetime of the coolers.
That's more or less correct. Yeah, we definitely lead with this kind of lifetime value of our product and lifetime cost savings, because we can last 10 to 20 times longer than expanded styrene boxes. We are a little bit more expensive up front, and I think for the small community of startups working on packaging, they will be very familiar with this problem. But packaging is really a scale problem.
Yeah.
The packaging industry is massive, and basically it exists because of economies of scale. And so, as a startup making packaging, we just don't have that economy of scale quite yet. And so, even though our raw materials are very inexpensive, and that was kind of the cornerstone of this product that we're building, we are still a little bit more expensive up front than styrofoam. But as we kind of scale up our capacity and bring more manufacturing online, our upfront costs will go down a little bit. But already over the lifetime of the product, we are saving customers money. But that sticker price is very top of mind for a lot of customers, and that's a big target for us. Of course, we can help businesses tell a much more environmentally and socially friendly story with our packaging. And I think that's kind of like a nice little cherry on top for a lot of our customers. But ultimately, we are really competing, on cost and on performance. And so it is, our costs are very top of mind for us. And we're already, basically making that work for a lot of our customers today.
And also, it's like you could also pitch like the happiness factor. Like, don't you hate dealing with this styrofoam crap? Don't you hate it? Your frustrations will be gone. How much is frustration and happiness worth to you?
That story and that frustration factor, it resonates differently with different customers. But I think it's amazing how universal this kind of like spine tingling just like revulsion to styrofoam is around the world. Like, nobody likes when styrofoam shows up at your front door, those packing
Totally, man.
peanuts or
Totally.
anything.
It's awful.
I feel like you can just hear that sort of sound it makes when you pick it up, and nobody likes that. And it's absolutely no different in Southeast Asia to your experience here in the US. And so we definitely have that going for us when we're making these pitches, no matter who we're pitching.
Well, the environmental side, do you want to talk about that for a little bit? Because that seems to be a huge benefit at this moment in time, to have an actually sort of environmental friendly packaging. Is, like you said, I mean, it's economies of scale. I couldn't even put my finger on the numbers of sort of as far as just the shipment boxes and the coolers around the world every day, right? But like there has to be some type of environmental impact for the traditional model versus a new innovation like this coming out. There has to be some positivity from an impact side, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what makes us really excited about this, and about, working on a small scale initially, but just knowing that this massive scale is kind of waiting for us if we can get it right on this smaller scale. Because, the thing about packaging, as you say, it's like packaging is a massive industry, agriculture is a massive industry, and we're kind of working at the
Yeah.
corner of agriculture and packaging. And so the negative impact of using so much expanded polystyrene packaging is really immense. Like 15 million tons of polystyrene are produced every year, and that is, for every time there's a beach cleanup, every time there's kind of a waste audit, you see these polystyrene pellets. You see it in the ocean, these kind of like confetti, it almost looks like out there. It's just these little beads of polystyrene. And, you see it sort of at every kind of like shore, where the waves are kind of lapping at the shore. You see this little line of polystyrene beads. I mean, expanded polystyrene is everywhere. It has a really significant impact. And in Southeast Asia in particular, it's a leading source of mismanaged plastic, and ultimately of ocean plastics. And so we do see in the Philippines a huge amount of these broken up styrofoam boxes, being blown off of trucks or out of little supplier sheds sort of on the beach and straight into the ocean or into the rivers. And it's a really significant source of marine plastic and of waste. It's just a huge opportunity here to do something about all that plastic in the environment. The other, I would just call out one other environmental impact, which is a completely different one, but it is the fact that in the tropics and in the Philippines and in Indonesia, billions of coconuts are produced every year. They're produced for their meat and for their water inside, and the husks are also waste. And the easiest way to get rid of your waste on the farm is to burn it. And so billions, 2/3 or more of the coconuts that are produced in the Philippines are just burned on the farm and are a super significant source of CO2 emissions. It starts to actually register like a couple percent of the CO2 emissions of the Philippines is this kind of agricultural residue burning. And coconuts, like the 15 billion coconuts produced in the Philippines per year, is actually a significant source of those emissions. And so by sort of rerouting that waste stream, instead of burning it, farmers can sell it to us. And so you're also reducing CO2 emissions.
And it's another revenue stream for the community, right? For that company that's already using it for other means.
Yes, exactly.
That's unbelievable, right? I mean, that's going from throwing away something to actually making money off something you're going to throw away. Like, that is amazing. Right?
It's great to be working with and we have some amazing partners who have spent a long time figuring out these agricultural waste commodity chains. But it is a huge benefit for commodity farmers who really are making just the slimmest of margins, if any, on these commodity crops like coconut, to be able to have a brand new revenue stream that they can sort of pull out of what used to be a waste stream for them, without needing to retrofit their whole operations or do anything too differently, is really a game changer. And it makes us really excited to increase the demand for this waste product, because the supply of coconut husks is unbelievably huge. And so we are just working on increasing demand and sourcing from more and more farmers on that side. But it is very much significant for farmers, for sure.
And just to piggyback off that really quick, is that coconuts grow other places around the world, not just Southeast Asia. So in a great world, in a scalable world for Fortuna, right, you could do this with other rural sort of farmers around the world to have them actually have more of a revenue stream eventually.
Yeah, we're building out this model that I think is extremely scalable. So yeah, you said it. There's kind of this belt of coconut growing around the world. The significant countries, Philippines is one of them, but Indonesia is is even bigger than the Philippines. And in Southeast Asia, you also have Thailand and Vietnam that are producing a lot, Brazil in South America, and India and Sri Lanka in South Asia. So we are really kind of building out this model of manufacturing and production in these rural areas where there's not a lot of innovative, different sort of opportunities, not a lot of new value streams, and we're really building out kind of this business in a box model that can be applied in other places, and we're super excited to be expanding to a couple more countries in Southeast Asia later this year and into next year. So yeah, it is very much expansion is exciting, and it's definitely on our radar, and there's a huge appetite for it.
At Brandshine, our comprehensive brand strategy process ensures that your impact brand is strategically positioned and can put its best foot forward to both investors and potential clients. Then, we work with world-class designers to craft your new logo and your unique visual flair. But we don't stop there. We write, design, and develop your new website in Webflow, a cutting-edge platform that delivers incredible websites that are easy to maintain without our help. To download the free 7-step guide to building a market-ready impact brand, visit brandshinecreative.com/causeartist.
Let's talk about, I love consumer brands, and especially impact consumer brands is top of mind for me all the time. So let's talk about Nutshel coolers, and basically you've taken this idea and instilled it into a consumer product, which is similar. I guess the best, we won't say comp, but like in America, people will recognize like Coleman coolers or like Yeti coolers, and these sort of coolers you buy at any type of outdoor store. But Nutshel coolers is going to be your product line for consumers to purchase sort of these innovative new coolers coming out with this technology that you guys have created. So talk about Nutshel coolers for a little bit, because I love this idea.
Yeah, for sure. We're super excited about it, and excited about kind of the larger movement that hopefully this will help to spur, in different parts of the world, to get people really thinking about the products they're using and the materials that they are made with. Yeah, so Nutshell coolers really came out of the fact that when we were walking around, pitching Fortuna cools, and we had these prototypes that we would always show up to meetings with customers or with investors and so forth. The meeting would go well or not so well, but either way, at the end of the meeting, an investor or a customer would always ask us, "Oh, can I just get one of those? Because it just looks really, really cool, and it looks really different from anything I've seen. I'd love to kind of like take to the beach."
Right. Yeah, for sure.
And so we got that so many times, for years, we sort of got that response, and we never thought too much about it. But at a certain point, we couldn't really ignore it. And we also saw just this potential to, as I said, to really have kind of a bigger movement and have a bigger conversation about these materials we're using. And so, yeah, it really came out of that sort of organic demand, and also just this weird fact that this kind of outdoors loving market, like when you walk into REI and you're looking for a cooler to take camping with you, it's people that love nature, that love the outdoors, but all the options that you can buy in REI are these plastic coated, plastic insulated products. And it was just this weird kind of discordance. And I don't think people necessarily think too much about it.
Yep.
But it just felt like, there was an opportunity here to be telling a larger story, and to also help people kind of match the products that they were buying with, their sort of obvious values. I'm sure if people had the choice, they would prefer not to be, buying and consuming, more plastic all the time. And so, yeah, we're super excited to be launching Nutshell coolers, because, to really meet this demand for a more eco-friendly, sustainable cooler product, something that, just like our packaging product, you can fold up when it's not in use. You can throw it in your car or under your bed if you live like in an apartment and you don't have a closet to devote to a new clunky cooler. But you can expand it. You can take it camping, take it to the grocery store if you need to get some milk or some ice cream, and yeah, it can just become basically your insulated bag or box of choice. And I think that there's, besides just really solving this kind of problem for people, I'm really excited personally just about getting people thinking, as I said, about kind of the materials and consumer choices that they're making. And I think people are really going to resonate with the larger story and about kind of the mission that this product represents. And I'm pretty confident, pretty optimistic that that people are going to get excited when they can and connect this very unique looking cooler with sort of the farmers and the supply chain and the larger story that it represents. It does not look like, just another plastic cooler that you can buy off the shelf in REI.
Totally. No, it all makes sense. And it's going to launch on Kickstarter and it'll be live on Kickstarter when this releases. What's sort of the turnaround time? Like when can people expect to actually get one of these bad boys?
So I don't want to jinx myself, but
Sure.
we have been making coolers for a couple of years. And so even though this represents an upgraded, a bit of a different design for the consumer market, and to have these sort of unique little touch points and experiences for consumers, under the hood, we have gotten pretty good at making coolers. And so again, knock on wood, but it should be just a few months of turnaround time. We might just barely miss this crazy kind of summer that we're about to have, but maybe at the tail end of summer we're going to start delivering and having an inventory that we can deliver straight out of. So not too long between when we go on sale and when we're going to be in the market around the world.
Amazing, man. Well, usually I like to end a little bit on the future and some of the goals and successes you'd like to see over the next 3 to 5 years, whether it be from the B2B market or the B2C market. Just talk about a little bit of the goals that you and the sort of team have, long-term vision wise for the company and the brand.
The mission for the consumer product and the packaging product, so Nutshel and Fortuna, it's really the same, and it's made with the same material. And so we have the benefit of being able to track our impact and our performance in the same way. And so it's really about, how much plastic can we avoid producing, and, how many farmers can we support by buying their leftover waste product and increasing their value stream. In the next 2 years, as I said, our goals are really about expanding our production sites. So taking kind of this one production site that we've scaled up in the Philippines and replicating it in Indonesia and in Thailand. And so bringing on, 1,000 more farmers into our production supply chains. And, aside from these 1,000 more farmers, we do really track, how much plastic waste is avoided with each cooler. And so we do have a pretty ambitious targets there. We're definitely hoping to avoid thousands of tons of polystyrene waste, and our 5-year target here is really to avoid 100,000 tons of polystyrene around the world from having to be produced, and replace it with this natural biodegradable coconut husk fiber. So it's a huge number. It's something we can put on the wall, but we can really start tracking it every day with each cooler that we sell. Is a dozen or more expanded polystyrene coolers that don't have to be produced and are then not broken, not left by the side of the road, and not blown out into the rivers or into the ocean. And so yeah, that's kind of our target, kind of expanding geographically and increasing the amount of plastic that we're avoiding in the environment.
Amazing, my man. Well, thanks so much for taking the time. It's really, really cool what you and the team are on, and the mission, and just the idea and the journey of it all. I mean, the research and just doing testing and years of just grinding, man. Like that's what it takes, and it's cool to hear stuff paying off, right? And then things are moving along, and it seems like you're building a company that's going to be around for a really long time and impact a lot of lives, both financially but also environmentally. So I mean, it's a really cool story, man. And best of luck to you and the rest of the team for the next decades to come.
Really appreciate it, Grant. Yeah, it's an awesome ecosystem of partners and communities and consumers and customers we're building. And so we're super excited about what the future holds for us and for all of our partners around the world. It's exciting.